Moos is such a beautiful place, such an incredible field, and everywhere I go, I talk about it. Everywhere I go, I invite people to come there.
How do you describe it?
A place where all of these circles, all of these different ways of being, have a place to meet, and understanding that through this very stumbling, that we did as a group, trying things and stumbling
together.
Yeah, stumbling together a lot for years. That a lot of pain, but a lot of learning, and realizing that actually it doesn't matter the structure or what we do, but actually the most powerful thing is that we're bringing people together that would normally not meet because they're from such different value systems or circles of practices or ideologies.
This was an intention before?
No, it's something, that we understand. I mean, with Jacob, we talk a lot. Like we don't talk a lot, but when we talk very like, we call it downloads, and yeah, Jacob is the, if we would have to name a source or a visionary, Jacob is the visionary of Moos. And he's a visionary in a very beautiful way, is that he's very open to other people's ideas, other people's visions, and he's like just channeling them and making them happen. Because he's an extraordinary human being. I've rarely met someone who has so much power of manifestation. And actually what I was saying earlier to positive fakes, positive storytelling, imagination activist.
Yeah.
Like saying something, oh, there's going to be this, and actually it's not planned. There's no plan of doing that. But because he says it as if it already was, people are like, yeah, I'm going to help. Yeah, let's do this, and it happens. So this capacity to onboard and to activate people's desire to contribute and to collaborate and to create together,
as if it's already happening. I love that. As
if it's already happening, which is it's the secret, the lost meaning of prayer. You don't pray for something that's not here. You actually pray as if it already, you believe it's already here, and it's actually, that's what makes your heart and brain resonate together. So I believe he's very powerful at praying. He's a very, very spiritual person. So the reason that Moos has emerged the way it has emerged is also relational. I met Jacob at the Collaboration Incubator, who is Manuela's baby. Who is an extraordinary human being who brings people together from different places, because she is, like Jacob, like me, people who do not sit in one circle or in one place, but who travel between all of the different, and who weave those worlds together through relations. And we met at Moos, at the Collaboration Incubator, on my 40th.
You and Jacob met at Moos,
yeah, on my 44th birthday. Yeah, and we had a very powerful 3 days, and Uji was there as well, and Henny, and Ollie showed up, and as at the party, and other people who were part of Moos at the beginning. And there was just an opportunity during the lockdown, just the beginning of this huge apartment that actually was offered to Manu for us, for our patchwork family at the time.
Right.
Like, hey, do you want to live together with my mom's kids, her partner, with Manu, my kids? And for me, that was like, no. Direct, no, it's not the time, it's not the place. I do not want to live with other people's realities. I need my space. But Manu thought of this group of friends because they were looking for a place to live together, and to not only live, but to live in a project, to invite people in, And yeah, they didn't believe it when they got the pictures and the price, because it was like, what? That's crazy that it's possible. But because they needed, it wasn't the plan of that.
Yeah.
That wasn't the plan. It was supposed to be some sort of Airbnb from what I understand, for like musicians and people from the festival scene, creatives, artists. So that opportunity created this space that turned into Moos Garden, that turned into Loft, which turned into our second home during the lockdown, because we were following the rules, and you could go to one household. You're allowed to visit one household. Or like, if we're going to visit one household, we're going to visit you. There are living 9 people, 9 of our friends.
Yes.
And yeah, things started to weave there. We just started to talk and share ideas. And
so you were not living there when with this original cohort of Jakob and
No, we were just visiting. We were just visiting. We were, connected through, again, relationships. And I think that's what also is beautiful about Moos, is that it's built through relationships of intimacy and trust. I'm sharing this with people. It's like, yeah, do they have a website? I was like, well, it's actually still not working. But what's crazy is wherever I go, to festivals, to other places in the world, I'm like, yeah, I've been helping with this beautiful project called Moos Garden, and they're like, oh, I heard about it, or I was there for this, and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. And then I was like, yeah, actually, it's a cool thing. Let's not do SEO. Let's not make this project visible. Let's do the opposite of what people do. Let's continue doing that, weaving relationships, weaving real human contact. And that's what was happening in Moos, is having dinners, having yoga or meditation together,
jams, music jams.
And having this amazing, a lot Jacob, right? Because it's just like he knows everyone from everywhere. Or I'm always joking, is like, Jacob must have clones. Like, how is it possible that I saw him here in this art exhibition, and then he's in this singing circle, and then he's like, how does he do it? Or he's mastered teleportation.
We'll ask him that question.
At some point we were calling him the wizard. That you have to go ask, if you have a question about Moos or what is happening, you go ask the wizard and you'll get a cryptic answer, and then you have to go on a quest
decipher the answer,
to figure it out. We also at one point wanted to make him a t-shirt with a calendar, and that there could be like post-its of all the things happening in Moos, because there's so much going on, and he is or was kind of always the only person who really had the overview of everything, because of the complexity of it, and because of his capacity to weave so many possibilities, coming back to this idea of what I seed lots of things, and then I see what grows, instead of being like, oh, this is what I want, and this is what's happening, and I'm going to do everything and push against everything and all resistance to make that happen in the world. But to be more in this, like, oh, I see an opportunity here, oh, I see a seed here, I see that this needs a little watering, oh, I see that this needs a little pruning, oh, I see this needs a little love, oh, this gardener should really meet this person, because they have the seeds that they need for so that I like this name that also came by, who knows, the story. Some people know the story, but nobody really knows. It's the Moos Garden. That for me, it's a place where all of that can happen. That some people just have a seed of an idea and they need support, like to find a place to plant it. Some people already have like a little bush growing, but they're kind of stuck, and it's like growing in all kinds of ways, and actually it could use a little pruning. Some people just need a little bit of watering, and a lot of times it's just like matching what are people's needs and what are the resources that are in this relational field, and how can we with ease support each other and understand how powerful we are when we actually speak out our needs and our desires and our boundaries.
So at Moos, were you, again, you weren't there, but you were connected with all these different people. Like, did you have some collaborations with specific people that were there, or were you mostly passing through? Or?
No, so then what happened is that Julia and Willem, they saw what was happening, and they saw how vibrant it was, and they saw how much this group was bringing to Moos, that they invited us to collaborate for the wider sphere of Moos, to help move Moos to co-responsibility and co-ownership and co-creation, because they're tired of what I say, like being the mama and the papa, you know, like if anything goes wrong or anybody has a question, it's like Julia and Willem that are the bottleneck, right? And that it's not what they wanted, it's not their vision of Moos, right? It's not their vision of Moos to be a renter, you know, in this relationship. So they had this idea that we as a group could help them do that, and at the same time understand what the concept of the loft could evolve into, and what could this new building be, and what could this big hala be. And it's at that point where me and Manu, I think from Manu's initiative, to be like, hey, let's use dragon dreaming to make a dream circle and dream what Moos can be in 2 years. And yeah, we became like the most, we called each other the most stewards of a group of people who was loose as well, because it's all relational. So it's like, who has the energy, who feels right to be here and to support this. And it was shifting, and there was, you know, somewhat of a core group, and people who were holding a lot, right, who were responsible for the legal, and like, you know, who's in the end responsible for paying the rent, and who is responsible for the relationships between us and Willem and Julia, for example. Who's responsible for a relationship with the community?
Yeah,
that already is there and that's been there for a long time. And so we did this dragon dreaming, which was a very beautiful process, and I moved in for a month with Manu, I think, for the first time. She moved in, I think, maybe for 2 months. I moved in for a month.
To the loft?
Yeah, just to feel, to be more understanding and feeling, and being able to support more just by being there. And I moved out again, and then last year I wanted to experiment with living there for longer, and didn't have an apartment, and I was like, okay, I'm going to move in with my kids. So we lived for, I think, 4 or 5 months in the end with Nata and Leo. Last summer.
This was like in your studio down there?
No, I lived in first in the front room, and then in the back room, and Nata had a pod.
Wow.
Leo shared a room with me.
Yeah.
I rented actually 2 pods and a room, because has always been a struggle with serving the world and taking care of ourselves, and there was a tendency, which there still is, I believe, of it's amazing, everyone loves it there because it's so open and everyone's enjoying themselves, but then there's the, like, who's caring for the space, who's caring for the people who are actually holding that space, who are living there. And there was a disbalance in that, and that was creating a lot of tension and burnout, and I saw that and wanted to create space so that there would be a little less people, a little less action. So I was like, it was actually my strategy was like, I'm gonna rent 2 pods and a room, even though I don't really need that second pod. Leo slept in there once, I think, and people were, it was like a guest bedroom in the end.
Cool.
But just to kind of trying to create a space where there would be less action, less openness to the world, and trying to find a rhythm of that, like the seasons, to not be.
This come up before, when it reminds me of you're buying domains where you're creating space for nothing to happen, which actually is functional somehow in the space, right?
Yeah. true. That's the thing. I like to create space for being, because I like being with people, and I like having space and time for that.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit allergic to the doing.
You described, I mean, you've sort of this 2-year relationship with Moos, and you're in, and you had a moment where you have to go out, and just takes time so that you can come back in. So it's kind of complex to ask you. I think normally when I talk to people about Moos, they have a sort of a single kind of journey where it had a clear beginning and then they're leaving, so there's an end. And you've had sort of various moments of this, so maybe it's a bit complex, but like, you know, what are you going to take with you from your experience with Moos? Not that you're leaving, but like, what have you maybe learned from this, or what kind of things do you think you'll bring to other spaces?
Yeah, it's amazing. So extraordinary how much I've learned. And the reason we learned so much is because we were always open to trying and fucking up and trying something else. I mean, when I arrived, that's what I was saying, is like, it's amazing what you've created, because you have all these systems, and then like, okay, let's try it for a week, and then you check in and it's like, oh, this is not working, hey, let's try this. And being so experiential and living together and learning together and being ready to make mistakes. The festival I just came from, Touch and Play, they created something called mistake culture and messy consent. So like, to be human, fully human, you need to have spaces where you feel safe to mess up and to go over people's boundaries and to go into your orange or your red, you know, in places where it's a little scary and you don't know if you like it or not. And that is so valid for these kind of projects as well. Like, you know, if we think we need so much structure and so much rules and so many guidelines and so many ways that to be able to live together and to be able to do things together, then we stop being very human.
You cannot specify everything. You have to have. It's necessary to have a human aspect of like living together. You have to have things that are just not defined, and like it lets people come loose. And I mean, okay, I'm just trying to paraphrase what you're saying, but I think it makes sense to me. And then on the other hand, I've seen a lot of I think for me, my interest with co-living essentially began at Moos, because I didn't do so much of that before coming to Moos. Like, or I mean, I would live with maybe like a few roommates or something, but okay, I was doing this residency at Moos, and it was like 8-10 people in the Dhaka shows, and then maybe in the Neubau. So I started to like really have this experience of living with like a larger group of people and having to think about systems and when stuff happens. And I think in the time that I was there, it felt a little bit messy and chaotic, in the sense that it wasn't a clear consensus on how to do things, and then people got exhausted because there was no consensus, etc. And so it's sort of this cyclical problem tended to happen. And so I traveled a little bit, and I in my travels I saw some other places where people were living together, and it seems like they had these like systems in place for how to deal with things. And I don't know if, and it seemed like people were more or less happy, and I would always ascribe it to those systems. But now I'm wondering, like, well, and they obviously did have problems as well, but I'm wondering how much of it is enabled by those systems. Like, how much of their ability to just relax into the space is enabled by having systems and how to do things.
Yeah, I think it's it's in like play theory, or like the edge of educational theory, is that the sweet spot is finding the edge between chaos and structure. And I think that that's what we've been learning at Moos. It's like, you make rules, but if you can't bend them or you can't break them, then they're not the right rules, right? There needs to always be place for humanness, for and what's important is actually, the most important is relationships. It's like, from most, what I've learned so much, and now I see that I'm applying it and being able to help so many other communities. Now, in the two weeks I was in Portugal, Like all of the wisdom and all of the things that I'm sharing is coming from my experience in Moos. It's messiness. It's beautiful chaos. It's beautiful messiness, and that's what makes it human. And there's a lot of problems or people being unhappy, or conflicts because of things not working, or promises, or all of this stuff is happening at Moos, but it's happening everywhere in the world. And it's happening in every place. And what's beautiful about Moos is that they keep on trying. And keep on trying to figure out. And the key for me in all of that is humans, it's relationships, and understanding that actually whatever you do, the most important is to create space for heart-open conversations, to create space to come together and enjoy each other, and also have a feeling of a safe place to be able to share what hurt you, or to share what you're having a problem with. And one of the things we developed because of that happening, right, in Moos, was like a conflict culture, not based on like taking from different things, and co-created by the group, and also inspired by our relationship problems with Manu, of realizing that like we make assumptions about what people need. And then we think we're caring for someone or a project because we're assuming that that's what's needed, but we're not asking. Or maybe it was said before in another conversation, so we assume that's still valid. And so there's this need to continuously check in for needs, desires, and boundaries, basically, which is actually coming from the sex-positive world. Right, and I see that's there's so much wisdom in the sex-positive world of not assuming that because someone said yes, you could massage my knee an hour ago, 10 minutes ago, that it's still okay. And so there's lots of frameworks in the sex-positive world, and how do you do that? To not have rules, like you have to say continuously yes. That's one way of like yes, 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 no, maybe, but that's we had this amazing talk at this festival by Beata, who's doing her thesis on consent and the evolution of consent in the queer theory, and how we can go beyond consent to become even more human, and find that everyone has different needs of consent. And all of this applies to Moos. All of this applies to all of the different relationships, and working together, and projects, and living together, and like caring for each other. It's a longing for something, that we want to live in another way, of being in a field where we feel fully human, and we feel connection and intimacy in different ways with different people, but we feel held in that, and we feel like, this is a place where I can bring my whole self, and I can bring my dreams, and we're seen in our dreams, and we're supported in our dreams. And that's my idealism of like what Moos has a potential for. And we're all in different places, and we all have different life history and experiences of what works and didn't work in other projects, and so like ideas of how things should be, and that creates a lot of conflict also, of like, no, my way is better, and like, we created this way of organizing, and then someone else comes in new, and they're like, no, I think we should do this, and then we start over from scratch. We did that so many times. And it was like, wait, we just like figured something out. Let's just use it for now. It's not perfect, but let's use it. And then like another impulse of someone else new would come in and be like, wait, but I have a better way. And it's like all of the work would be scratched. And that's the reason, one of the reasons that a lot of people left. It's not the reason. There's no reason. There's no reason for anything. That's our silly human beings thinking
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
can
but
find
I mean,
reasons
it's a
for things.
it's a recurring theme that can burn out some people, and yeah,
Yeah, being frustrated of work, feeling like I'm contributing a lot, and then my contribution is not
yeah,
valid anymore, or it happened to me. I made the website just before leaving because I thought, there was a need to crowdsource circles. I was like, I heard that. I was like, okay, that's something I can do. I'm not there anymore, but I can do it. And then it was never used, and someone else made a Notion site the next day, without any dialogue with me, without any conversation with me, without any hey, and it's not that person's fault or my fault or anybody's fault. It's the reason that we talk about the wrong things. And this was frustrating for me. I'm new to this whole change maker bubble and everything. I just discovered all of these kind of initiatives and everything through Manu.
Mm.
And I was 4 years ago, right? And I was very happy because a lot of the ideas, I was like, oh, I've been thinking about this for a long time, but not feeling like I can do anything about it. I was like, wow, it gives me hope. There's all of these amazing, intelligent, open-hearted people who are doing extraordinary things in the world. And I see that there's a capacity for transformation, positive transformation, when all of these connect and come together, and realizing that, wow, we have a lot of power.
Mm.
But it's like we sit around in circles and do these processes. This very male, often masculine, we need to be efficient and get to an organizational structure, or get to decision way, or figure things out, or how we're going to make money, or whatever, how we're going to be sustainable in a very masculine, logical brain. We do this, and we need to do this, we need to get there, so we need to sit and have this meeting, and we need to be efficient, so you only have 2 minutes to talk, and then the next person 2 minutes to talk. And we were very lucky to have, during this period, amazing beings who saw that shadow and who were pointing it out and being like, hey, did you notice that there's no consent from the group that this is the best way for these kind of things? It's just imposed.
Yeah.
Because we only have 2 hours, because we need to be efficient, because we don't have time to just sit around and share our emotions. So that's the feminine, or the relational way. And for me, the world needs that. And I was always saying I would like to empower Moos and other projects in any case, for there to be more of that energy, whether it's female-bodied or others, but that there's more leadership in that relational, soft, hey, let's hang out and have tea and not have a structure and see what emerges. But no, we don't have time, we have all these problems. But maybe if we slow down and just chat without thinking that we need to chat in a certain way, or structure it, maybe then there's another way of seeing things that emerges, and that problem is not a problem anymore, because we can see that that's just pushing against something that isn't important right now, or isn't the thing that we should be concentrating on. Because if there's no relational field of comfort and love and acceptance and feeling good together, it's hard to get anything done. And that's what I learned, from every community I've been in, every project I've been, is this imbalance in what the hippies, the New Age people would call the feminine and the masculine, these energies, and the blind spot of thinking that we're super progressive and doing something new, but that is still very patriarchal and organizational structure. So invisible power, that there's people who have power who feel like they can just make decisions for everyone else and then do that. And there's other people who don't feel like they have that. So there's hierarchy. the organizers, the founders, the people who are temporarily there, the residents, the artists, all of these things are actually, they're coming from a culture of domination, of that there's someone that is better because he's giving more or they're giving more and their contribution is more important and they've historically given more, so they should be, and all of those are old patterns. Pointing them out is super important, and understanding, like, for example, like, there's this idea that there was all this invisible work that was the care work of someone who was really good at noticing when there was someone feeling bad, or even noticing when there were problems in relationships, like the couples that were living and the partners that were living within Moos, who affect the field, these tensions, and having someone who's aware of that and sensitive to that and bringing support to that, it's so amazing. But it's not recognized, it's not paid, it's not like, oh, thank you, your gratitude. And it was in this context, because we had the capacity to see that. But still, it always fell into the same prioritize, moving things forward, getting things done. This needs to look a certain way. We need to get a certain place for it to be a success. And then back and forth, realize burnout and like people doing too much, taking too much responsibility, and not noticing that they're actually not allowing for other people to take responsibility because they take responsibility so fast. This is amazing, and it's the same thing that happened in the co-op that I'm joining in Portugal. They're exactly at the same place as Moos was, the stuckness of someone who doesn't want to be in that role of being responsible for everything, who is not made for it because she's a projector, and because as projectors we shouldn't be doing all this work and feeling responsible. We should be like just giving impulses of like, we're lazy and we know we can see better ways of doing things that are effortless, and that like what you think you should be doing, you actually don't really need to be doing it right now. Let's concentrate on enjoying, dragon dreaming. One of the wisdoms is, if it's not fun, don't do it. And she was sharing about her struggles of feeling like she needs to hold everything. And this very wise, beautiful woman that I met there, Alma, who coincidentally ended up at Alma Ohana, the project. She's like, it's like somebody drops a cup and you catch it, but what makes you think that not somebody else wouldn't catch it down here? And if you always are catching it up there, that person never will have the opportunity to catch it there. And so then they don't even feel like they need to even think about catching that cup, because you're catching it always like like a ninja the second it falls. So like this idea of like trusting, that we can care for each other and that we're co-responsible. That, I developed so many things in Moos that I'm using now, that I'm applying to other communities, that I'm bringing to other communities, like carry it forward. This idea that small acts of caring, instead of like roles of you need to do the dishes or you should take the trash out. But that like if I see something that's trash and I'm going towards the trash, I pick it up and I put it there. If I'm going towards the kitchen and I see dirty dishes, in that movement I take them and I go there. If I am washing my dish and there's another dish that's dirty, I don't add my dirty dish to the dish that's dirty, I wash the two dishes. So they're like small effortless acts of caring that when we have a culture of that, it changes the whole field. So it's not rules. It's not like roles. This is your role now and you should be doing that, because then other people are like, oh no, it's his role to do the trash.
Yeah, it becomes invisible.
I'm just gonna leave that. It's not my role. I did it last week. like, you know, this is like a typical thing, is people who forget to wash the trace of shit when they poo, you know, and people, some people hate that. It really triggers people, you know, this. I just wash it, you know. I don't go say, hey, who left their shit trace? Because that was happening too. Like, sometimes, like, Telegram messages. It's just like, you know, which what happens there is just like, okay, it's showing signs of people being pissed off at other bigger systemic things, you know, of some people caring more and some people caring less. But it's a culture. And it was hard at most because there were so many people coming through. Like, how do you maintain a culture? How do you pass on a culture of care and of lovingness when the group is changing all the time? And so it's super interesting because that's the world. That's actually when we are moving around in the world, that's what's happening all the time. Like, you're here with me and we have some sort of common cultural embodiment and ideas of values of what it feels like to care.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you go out and you take a taxi or whatever, you go anywhere, we're always confronted with different value systems and different ways.
Where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can find me. I like to talk, as you can see. I mean, I'm very easy to find. I made internet art for for a long time, and so I'm very visible. I'm very easy to find as Benji Art, or as Benjamin Lee Dominique, or as Benji Martin, or as, you know, whatever. Ask around. Ask Benji in Berlin.
Okay, but if you're not in Berlin, for example.
I mean, you mean like one of these like social media things? I think I would point people to Instagram because it's the place that I actually share the most often, which depends. Like right now, I don't share very often.
Sure, yeah.
But and
what's your Instagram?
Benji Lee Martin.
Great to chat with you, Benji. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.